Okay, welcome back. I'm done coloring. I hope you have too. If you haven't, do take a moment to finish. I just noticed a couple of places I missed, and I was really in a hurry, so I'm going to take a second to fix that. Come on out. All right, what you're going to need for the next part is you need watercolor paints like I have, a little bit of water, and a paintbrush. So let's get talking about how to use watercolor paints. A lot of kids think they know, but then when we go to paint, it's not the best. So I'm going to show you. You need your water, of course. You need a paintbrush. Okay, the paintbrush should have a tip on it like this. If it doesn't, that means somebody has damaged it, and it's not going to really work very well for you. So if you cannot make a point once you get it wet, you need to get another paintbrush. All right, when you hold the paintbrush, you hold it just like you do a pencil, like this. You go back and forth in one direction. You never scrub back and forth. That's called a scrub brush. This is a paintbrush. If you scrub like that, you will damage the point. That's what somebody did with the paintbrush that doesn't have a nice point on it. So the reason we colored in really darkly with the yellow is when I paint over this, the watercolor paint is going to draw away from the wax of the crayon, and it won't cover up my lovely thunderbolts here. So that's what we call a resist. The crayon resists the watercolor paint. So I'm going to put my paintbrush in the water, and I'm going to look for a color. Definitely not going to use yellow. And I'm going to go with, I think I'm going to go with blue. So I'm going to take my paint and I'm going to start putting water into the paint. You should see it, if you notice it, I'm filling the little paint well, that's what we call these, with water. And I need to do that in order to get the paint to start coming up onto the brush. Now, when I go here to paint, I want to go very quickly. So I'm going to go back and forth, starting from the edge. And do you see how the crayon pulls away from the paint, and I cannot get the crayon over to cover up. I can't get the paint to cover up the crayon. And I'm using my blue, and I'm going back and forth down here, very gently and lightly. And I'm trying not to use too much water. I want only the water that's here. I'm not going to use any water out of the jar. The water, that's strictly for cleaning up. And I am going to go around, and I'm going to make sure I do not get my paint into my Frankenstein. I don't want Frankenstein to be any other color than what I've already colored him. Okay, this one's coming out great. Blues, this is a great blue. And the same down here. Now, I can take a little bit of water, not much, and I can also use that to help spread the paint around. That's what makes watercolor so much fun, is if you will notice that as you're painting that you're not seeming to get any more paint, and you're starting to separate these bristles, that means that your paintbrush has gotten too dry. You need to dip it back into the paint or the water, dip the wet brush back into the paint, rub it around a little bit, and then come out and get going. Now, you have to be careful with this paper. It's not watercolor paper. They make special paper for watercolor, and this is regular drawing paper. So if you leave big giant puddles of water or keep putting more and more water on top of it, you are going to ruin your picture. The picture will rip. The paper will rip. So you need to be very careful. So I'm spreading the paint around. I have lots of paint here, and I can really get it to go. Look how far I can get it to go. I can almost get it all up this one side. So you don't need a whole lot of water and paint. You need just enough to be able to keep the paint moving around. If you can't move the paint around, that means you don't have enough water. You need a little bit. A little goes a long way. Whatever. Pan over here. Look over here. So as I dip in, I just dip it in just the edges in, not the whole brush. If you dip the whole brush in, you got water coming out, that's way too much. Shake it a little bit. Try not to get your neighbor wet, and back into the paint. So you only need a little bit. Now, if you want to try to be a little bit more creative with this, as long as you've got wet paint, you can add another color. And I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with this orange. Normally, I clean my brush off completely. I didn't do that this time, so I'm going to try to do it here, before I move into a new color, and I wipe it onto a paper towel. You don't want to put a dirty paintbrush into clean paint. And if you notice, I'm adding a second color on top, and I'm not coloring in the whole thing. I'm just putting it here and there, not everywhere. And it should be able to flow here and there. I don't want it everywhere. I just want it in certain spots, so I'm not needing to add too much. You don't need, less is always more. So You don't think you have to add it everywhere to make it look good. You don't, just a little bit. And we call this a watercolor wash. Okay, and once you have finished going all the way around, you can call it good and stop. And so there you have it. There you have your Frankenstein. And later on I'm going to come back over and I'm going to finish Frankenstein. So I hope you enjoyed our project today. I'd love to come back to school and see them closer to Halloween. Hopefully you'll have them up around your room and I can see what you've done. I hope you enjoy the project. I'll see you next time. Bye.